These are the fundraisers you don't want to donate your hard-earned money to. Let's get right into it with number 6, Not a Cop Charity. The Robert L. Zore Foundation was created to support the families of fallen police officers by Rosemary Zore in 2018. Zore founded the organization to honor her father, a Miami-Dade police officer who was killed in the line of duty in 1983 when Rosemary was only 7 years old. Zore and her husband, Michael Randall, face criminal charges after failing to properly register the foundation with the state of Florida and embezzling funds from the nonprofit. Zore also failed to meet federal and state requirements for tax-exempt status. As investigators looked further into the nonprofit, they found that there were inadequacies in the foundation's bank records. Between 2019 and 2020, nearly $35,000 was transferred from the foundation's bank account into Zore's personal bank account. Zore had claimed that she received no financial compensation from the foundation, but she had secretly added herself to the foundation's payroll and received $4,500 in payments between September and November of 2020. Zore wasn't just saving the transferred money for a rainy day. The investigation found that the Fallen Officers Foundation made a $500 child support payment in Ohio, a $100 payment to a chiropractor, and a $216 payment to a masseuse. In addition to raising money for families of fallen officers, the organization also claimed to fund scholarships for youths interested in joining law enforcement and was raising funds for a memorial monument in Naples. Zore and her husband claimed the monument had the blessing of elected officials, but the county commission hadn't voted on the proposal. As donations to the organization continued to fill bank accounts, Zore took the opportunity to further her own political interests by inviting Republican politicians and far-right celebrities to speak at foundation events. The foundation raised money by hosting monthly cover band concerts and a handful of flag football tournaments and through a gala in March 2020. These events almost always featured a lineup of pro-Donald Trump speakers. Zore also sold Back the Blue merchandise on the Fallen Officers website. Zore and her husband insisted they had nothing to hide, despite having failed to file tax returns in 2019 and 2020 and failing to register the nonprofit within the state. They also claimed that the organization was non-political, that it was only about law enforcement and had nothing to do with any political leanings. Rosemary Zore now faces felony criminal charges, and her husband faces a single felony charge of failing to register as a professional solicitor after he took a cut of the donation proceeds while serving as vice president for the charity. Number 5. Golf charity cheater. In sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, Robert Alexander set out to make his life just a little bit sunnier at the expense of a few unsuspecting do-gooders. Alexander now faces fraud charges after allegedly duping golfers into donating to a fake charity event benefiting the Wounded Warrior Project. Alexander began his scheme by approaching people who were out for a day on the links. He would play a few holes with them to build a rapport, then would ask the golfers if they would like to participate in a charity golf event. For victim Lindsay Meisner, the Wounded Warrior Project, which services military veterans, hit close to home, as she's an Army veteran herself. Meisner generously donated $10,000 to Alexander for the charity, and she claims that she donated it in cash. Alexander insisted that cash was better tax-wise, but after accepting the money, Alexander vanished. Meisner's calls and texts to Alexander weren't going through, and she never heard from him again. 2 other victims came forward and explained that they had donated $900 and $700 to Alexander under similar pretenses, believing that they were paying some sort of entrance fee to participate in a charity event. One golfer uncovered the scam after calling the venue and discovering that the event wasn't scheduled. Meanwhile, Alexander the scammer was running another scam. He was pawning off fake coupon books for the alleged benefit of schools. Evidence documents show that someone wrote Alexander a check worth $5,000 to resell the coupon books. As evidence stacked up against Alexander with more victims coming forward, he was finally arrested. Funny enough, this wasn't Alexander's first offense. He had formerly spent several years in federal prison after conviction for a Ponzi-like scheme in which he promised investors big financial returns on golf ball investments. This charge required him to pay $382,000 in restitution. Robert Alexander pleaded not guilty to his charges of fraudulent schemes after his arrest and is currently behind bars waiting for his next hearing. One thing's for certain, Alexander has a pattern and a history with golf course schemes, so do your research before handing over cash on the course. Number 4. Fake cancer scam. Nicole Elkabas, an ex-Harrods fashion consultant, was found guilty of setting up a fraudulent GoFundMe page in 2018 where she claimed she had cancer. Elkabas racked up some 45,000 euros in donations, but she didn't stop there. Elkabas faced further allegations linked to a fraudulent boxing charity event and the Broadstairs Town boxing team project, The Shed. The Shed is a woodworking organization for the elderly, but it provides more than tools to create wooden masterpieces. For many elderly members of the organization, The Shed is a form of social interaction with like-minded people, and Elkabas received around 10,000 euros that were meant to be donated to the group. After donating the charity money to herself, Elkabas was eventually convicted of fraud and possession of criminal property in the form of charitable donations. In her mitigation, Elkabas posted a photo lying in a hospital bed claiming that she needed money for a life-saving treatment for ovarian cancer. The photo wasn't a depiction of a cancer-ridden Elkabas, but rather a short recovery period after a routine operation to remove her gallbladder. The doctor must have accidentally removed her conscience as well. Additionally, the post allegedly came from Elkabas' mother, who actually suffers from cancer, but it was likely posted by Elkabas herself. Once the photo had been posted, Elkabas took matters into her own hands and set up a GoFundMe page titled "Nicole Needs Our Help Treatment." She wrote about the hardships yet to come in the form of surgery and grueling chemotherapy, and described herself as a loving mum who needed cash to save her life. Ultimately, Elkabas' consultant oncologist outed her after realizing the photo wasn't taken in the hospital Elkabas claimed to be in, and the authorities began to explore the cracks in her story. The doctor that was claimed to have overseen Elkabas' treatment didn't exist, and her bank account revealed absurd amounts of online and casino gambling. Although she was eventually caught, this wasn't without Elkabas making out with some 4,000 euros in donations that were spent on fancy hotels abroad and in casinos. Despite Elkabas' initial luck with scamming well-wishers out of money, scams don't last forever, and the authorities caught up to her. She was sentenced to 2 years and 9 months in prison on clear and compelling evidence. In fact, the evidence was so clear and compelling, it seemed that Elkabas didn't even try to hide her misdoings at all. Other than a fairly short jail sentence, Elkabas was only required to pay back a ridiculous 5 euros within a 28-day period. The order was made after authorities realized Elkabas had no assets or really any way to pay back the defrauded cash without running another scam. In hopes of ending Elkabas' cycle of scams, authorities kept her payment low. Number 3. The worst friend ever. How far would you go for your dream wedding? For Tori Standen of Widnes, Cheshire, a fake terminal illness was the limit. Standen told family and friends that she had been diagnosed with terminal vaginal cancer and provided supporters with regular updates on her treatment with intimate detail, so her condition was never questioned. Standen even shaved her head to further convince others she was undergoing intense chemotherapy and shared the photos on social media. Claiming she had only 2 months to live, her friends acted by setting up a GoFundMe page to help her and her partner James have the wedding she deserved before she fell too ill. Friends of Standen raised 8,500 euros to support this dream wedding. Standen said her last wish was to have her father Derek, who was also dying of cancer, walk her down the aisle. Her father passed before the wedding, but the celebrations carried on. After the wedding ceremony, Standen and her husband flew off to a honeymoon in Turkey and enjoyed an additional holiday months later, traveling through Germany, Austria, Hungary, the Czech Republic, and Italy. Friends began to grow suspicious as the newlyweds globe-trotted. Standen appeared to be some sort of medical miracle, far outliving her original diagnosis. Eventually, she admitted that she didn't have cancer during a 3-way phone call with friends, which the friends recorded. Standen apologized and said she felt embarrassed. Despite admitting her falsified death sentence, Standen accepted interviews with local newspapers to garner public sympathy. Standen was ultimately sentenced to 5 months in jail and ordered to repay a donation of 2,000 euros made by a local businessman. Although Standen's hair regrew and she eventually got out of jail, the trust she broke with her friends will never be rebuilt. It's a real shame she's married, guys. This one seems like a real catch. Number 2. Wrestling ties. Pro wrestler and son of pro wrestler, the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, Brett DiBiase, found himself in a bit of a cobra clutch. This time, Ted and Brett's trouble began off the wrestling mats and in their wallets. The two were charged for state welfare money used for personal means. The spending included $160,000 for drug rehabilitation in Malibu, California, a $250,000 salary for a job Brett was unqualified for, $48,000 for Brett to teach the Department of Human Services employees how to identify possible drug use, $8,000 for Brett to stay at an upscale New Orleans hotel, and more. But Brett didn't find his way to state welfare money on his own. John Davis, Mississippi's leader of the Department of Human Services, redirected federal funds to his pet projects, like Brett DiBiase, while squandering money that was meant to support those in need. Ironically, while Brett was being paid generously to educate DHS employees about using, he was struggling with his own problems using substances. A few months later, mother and son, Nancy New and Zachary New, pled guilty to state charges of misusing welfare money. They were behind the nonprofit organization that fed the funds for Brett's drug rehab, airfare, hotels, and more. This wasn't the News' first stab at misusing welfare money. Prior to the DiBiase scandal, Nancy New helped direct millions in welfare funds to a pet project of another famous athlete, retired NFL quarterback Brett Favre. Nancy New funneled money in for the construction of a volleyball facility at the University of Southern Mississippi, where Favre's daughter was studying. While Favre wasn't charged in this particular welfare misspending case, the News were. For more on Brett Favre ripping off welfare funds, check this video out. Nancy faces a maximum sentence of 99 years with 25 to serve, and Zachary faces a maximum sentence of 75 years with 17 to serve. As for Brett DiBiase, the official sentencing hasn't yet been handed down. According to State Auditor White, the DiBiase case was the largest public embezzlement in state history, and if convicted on all counts, those charged face hundreds of years in prison. Number 1. Boobies Rock. Adam Shyrock, the founder of now-known fake charity Boobies Rock, faced charges for theft of $1 million or more, conspiracy to commit theft of $1 million or more, and charitable fraud in 2015. These fraud and theft charges were actually not linked to the well-known Boobies Rock Foundation, but rather for a mattress scam. Shyrock, along with co-conspirator Genevieve Cruz, had been obtaining certain mattresses and returning them under false pretenses. The two claimed that they were being donated to the Ecumenical Refugee and Immigration Services in Denver, Colorado for distribution to refugees. Shyrock's counterpart, Cruz, had been serving as the donation coordinator for the charity, but instead of donating the mattresses to those in need, the mattresses had mostly been sold for profit out of storage units. Shyrock was ordered to serve 6 months of jail time after the Serta mattress scam. The judge ruled that he had violated an order prohibiting him from engaging in or selling merchandise for any charitable use. This was Shyrock's second time in a single year that he had been jailed for disobeying that order. Adam Shyrock's first run-in with law enforcement began with his own fake charity, Boobies Rock. The charity is one of the most well-known fund and awareness-raising efforts for breast cancer, and it had limitless potential to be a huge beneficiary to those who suffer from breast cancer. The mission of the charity was to create awareness through fun, fashionable, and humorous clothing and accessories while donating proceeds of merchandise to cancer research. However, most of the proceeds had been landing in Shyrock's own pocket. Between June 2011 and December 2012, the main Boobies Rock bank account at Wells Fargo showed deposits of over $1 million. While funds were stacking up, Shyrock was withdrawing large sums from the charity's bank account for personal expenditures, such as funds to purchase a new BMW. He also dipped into the charity funds to pay his bar tabs and subscribe to an online dating service. Additionally, Boobies Rock was accused of using the names of actual breast cancer charities to seem more legitimate. Shyrock claimed that donations were being made to other breast cancer charities, such as the Young Survival Coalition. Former Boobies Rock employees began to stand up against the alleged charity and revealed that no donations had been made to the foundations that Shyrock claimed. In 2013, Boobies Rock and other offshoot charities of Shyrock were put on hold via a temporary restraining order, or TRO. Shyrock ignored the TRO and was sentenced to a mere 14 days in jail. In the next few years, Shyrock was in and out of court for other fake charitable schemes and fraud. Shyrock has gone through more fake charities than you can count on one hand. So what's his punishment? Shyrock was sentenced to 12 months in prison for failing to file a tax return for his Boobies Rock gains, and he was also ordered to pay $430,970 in restitution. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments below, what percentage of charities do you think are scams?